So you're stuck and or screwed and don't know what to do. That means that you're either climbing the wrong tree or you're overwhelmed by the amount of trees in the forest. And in this video of Passing the Guard, we're going to talk about the yin and yang of obstacles and the only system that you need to overcome them. Let's talk about situations and problems. You know that old saying about not being able to see the forest for the trees? It typically means that you're too hyper-focused on the details and can't see the bigger picture. But it's easy to forget that depending on the moment, the opposite can also be true. You need to be able to see and alternate between both the forest, the situation, and the trees, the problems within that situation. The indecision and lack of action we often sit in comes from not knowing which of the two that you're dealing with. But why does that happen though? Well, that's because you're always you, and regardless of how hard you try to take an outside view on the matter, you're stuck with yourself, which means that you are the most important thing in the universe as far as you are concerned. And because of that truth, almost everything that you do, think, and regret revolves around you. That's why it's so hard to step back and get away from the situation. The way your eyes work and the placement of your appendages is engineered. We are physically designed to have a singular focus: survive. And that's the reason for how we get things done. But on a scale far above the creatures we know of, our brains have the ability to imagine. They are capable of creating something out of nothing by being able to consider everything outside of ourselves. There's nothing else out there trying to shoot themselves into space or trying to find the best selfie angle for Instagram likes. We think about dumb shit just as much as we think about the cosmos, because that's what brains do. They troubleshoot, tell stories, and make adjustments based on what the body does with those thoughts. And if the brain couldn't ponder the unknown, then the body would just solely focus on survival of the species. And that's the problem. You get lost in one or the other, and you'll just end up aimlessly surviving or daydreaming all the way to the grave. And these seemingly contradicting functions are there for a very good reason. We're not like other animals. With how far we've come, it's obvious that we were never meant to stay hunter-gatherers. We're explorers of the unknown that let our physical and mental states collide for innovative outcomes. As we constantly overcome obstacles, this yin and yang of development will continue forever. We look infinitely at every tree as a problem within a situational forest, and every forest as a single tree in an even bigger forest. And as the saying goes, you're never out of the woods. There's some good news though. If you can't actually handle the situation or problems within it, then you won't even know that you have anything to address. And therefore, you have nothing to worry about. Your brain only thinks about things you can do something about. So once you do notice that something is up, there's only one thing for you to do. And it doesn't matter if you're overwhelmed by the situation or hacking away at the same singular problem. Go back to your roots and utilize one of the best and first lessons you learned and haven't forgotten yet. 5WH. Who, what, where, when, why, and how. And before you ask questions, beware of the urge to start with how. How did this happen? How could this happen? How could someone do this? That's your ego trying to find ways to be lazy or do things like get drunk or high. Probably both. So start with the 5 W's. Those are the questions that will give you a clear picture of the box that you're in, the situation. Questions like what happened and who's responsible. Usually you. Just keep asking W questions until you get a handle on the situation you're in and have landed on a problem you're willing to solve. Then, start asking how. This is the reason how isn't lumped in with the other questions. Its purpose is to be the final question. This allows you to ask questions like, how am I going to fix this? How can I avoid it in the future? And how can it help me? And if you can't ask these types of how questions and get an answer, then start back up again with the W questions. Because you either missed something, are dealing with a problem you need to step away from, or are overwhelmed by the situation. Either way, 5WH it up. It's also necessary to focus on the way you ask these questions. Make sure the answers revolve around you, or at least eventually lead to your part in it. This is crucial for you to productively ask how and get things done. The how questions simply don't work. if your W questions aren't focused on your responsibility for the situations and problems. Remember, this isn't about blame. This process is about getting out of the woods. And sometimes the answer will be too big or seemingly out of reach for your current situation. And that's okay. You have limits. And if you hit rock bottom, your next win might just be to set an alarm to remind yourself to brush your teeth or take a shower. I've been there. So just keep asking W questions until you land on an answer that you're willing to address and ask how. And continue this process even as you fail. And ask questions like, why did I fail and how can I adjust my plan? Eventually, you'll be out of the situation and hacking away at a different one, repeating the process ad infinitum. And the last thing I'll leave you with is this. When the tree is too difficult to climb, look at the forest and pick another tree. Any other tree. And when the forest is overwhelming, pick a tree and climb it. Any tree. And implement 5WH wherever you find yourself. Get out there and start chopping down some trees. And like, share, subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you can see more videos on Passing the Guard. Thanks for watching. And remember, when life pulls guard, just smile, slap hands, and say, let's roll.